I'm Los Angeles City Controller Ron Galbron. As our city's Chief Financial Officer and watchdog, it's my job to help assure public dollars are being put to good use by keeping our government honest, responsive, and accountable. Because people want to know and deserve to know how their money is being spent. And just as it's important for the city to plan how to use our money wisely and make good investments, it's just as important for every Angelino to do the same. Because the financial health of our city, of our communities, depends on the financial health of every Angelino. Financial literacy and financial planning for individuals and families is crucial to success, and so is making positive financial choices for today and for the future, so that you can get bills paid, make the rent, save up for a car or a home, further your education and that of your loved ones, retire, plan for trips and vacations, and so much more. I want to thank so much our outstanding LA City Library and its leadership, including Chief Librarian John Szabo. Thank you to all the staff and the volunteers, notably our certified financial planners, and the library's Department of Lifelong Learning and its partners. And thank you for ensuring everyone has the tools and resources necessary to plan, save, invest, and manage their finances for the future, for their family's future, and for our city's future. To help with this, I would encourage you to check out my How to Build a Financial First Aid Kit tool, which gives you information you'll need to be prepared in case of an emergency. And you can find the kit at lacontroller.org/financial first aid kit. I wish you a positive and fruitful day of financial planning, and thank you all for participating.
Thank you, Mr. Galperin. Hello, everyone. I'm Lizette Gabriel, and I work as a librarian in the Business and Economic Department here at the Los Angeles Public Library. Welcome to today's presentation called Managing Debt. This program is part of an ongoing series of programs intended to support financial planning in October, and is brought to you by the Alliance for Economic Inclusion, AEI, and LAPL. Today's presenters are Robert de Acevedo, Linda Maldonado, and Nora Perez from AEI. They will talk to you about what debt is and how can you manage it. They will also discuss the different types of debt and strategies for managing it. Money saving tips will also be discussed. Please send us your questions throughout the program, and a Q&A session will be done after the presentation. Sorry about that. I'd now like to pass the presentation over to Robert.
Thank you very much, Lisette. Welcome, everyone. My name is Robert de Acevedo. I work for a local bank here in Los Angeles, and as Lisette mentioned, we're representing the Alliance for Economic Inclusion. So thank you for having us. We're going to be talking about debt, and let's go ahead and move to the next slide. So as the disclaimer shows, this presentation represents the views of us as the speakers, and doesn't necessarily represent the agencies. So this presentation cannot be reproduced, distributed by a third party or on a third party website without prior authorization. Next slide. All right, so we're going to be talking about debt. So I mentioned we're presenting today. So I'm going to be handing off the presentation to my colleague, Linda, in a few minutes. And then at the end, another colleague of mine, Nora, she'll be talking about LA Saves and the importance of savings. But right now, we're going to focus on managing debt. So next slide. So the key takeaway here is understanding your debt and the first step in managing it. So I love presenting this specific presentation on debt. For me, it's been life-changing. These principles that we're going to be talking about are so important. I know for me as an individual, as well as a father and a husband, I've used these same exact principles to manage our debt and eventually get out of debt. So we've been able to use these items to pay off all of our debts that we've had: credit card debt, mortgage debt, auto loan debt, student loan debt. So I hope everyone takes comfort in that. It's a learning process, right? It's taking baby steps to get to where you want to be. So let's move on to the next slide. So there's two types of debt we're going to be talking about. So we're going to talk about the difference between credit and debit, as well as what is a creditor and what is a debtor. So what is the difference between credit and debt? Well, debt is the money that you owe, and you've already borrowed it, right? Whereas credit, that's the ability to borrow money. So you haven't borrowed it yet. So you can use credit to borrow money, which then becomes your debt. So you can have credit without having debt. For example, opening up a credit card account gives you credit. You haven't incurred any debt yet unless you use that credit card. So you can also have debt without having credit. So if you borrow money to buy a car, for example, you have debt. You likely can't borrow more money using that loan, so you don't have any credit through that loan. So that first example that we talked about, credits, that's a revolving credit. So you can borrow on it and then pay it off and then borrow again. So that's a big difference between credit card, which is revolving debt, and loan, that's a term loan. So what's the difference between a creditor and a debtor? Well, the difference is there's going to be a few things that there's key terms that you want to understand about debt. So someone who owes money is called a debtor, and that could be a person, a business, organization, and so that's somebody that loans money to the debtor, and that's called a creditor or a lender. So next slide. Okay, so understanding your debt. So many of us make mistakes when it comes to handling debt. So understanding your debt, that's the first step to manage it. So to understand your debt, you need to know who you owe that money to, how much you owe them, and what's the remaining balance, how much the payments are, when the payments are due, and other important facts such as the interest rate, fees. That could be penalty fees, maybe for not following the rules for the loan or the credit. So that could be like late fees. There's also prepayment penalties. So these are fees lenders sometimes charge if you pay off a loan early. There's balloon payments. These are usually larger than usual one-time payments at the end of a loan term. So as you can see, there's lots of different details that you'll want to take note of. So the best way to do that is just write it all down. Maybe take some time to gather all of the debts that you have and just put it all in one place, and then you can get an idea of exactly what you need to do. I know that you may or may not know this, but you can actually get a copy of your credit report for free at annualcreditreport.com. So all you have to do is enter your information and you can see what is on your credit report. So other debts include monthly bills and statements you receive. So that could be, these are ongoing debts, maybe like utilities or streaming services, cell phones, things like that. There's loan agreements and credit documents. There could be personal agreements that you have, maybe with family or friends or others. And maybe there are no statements, but there is some type of debt there. So all of that information you want to go ahead and gather up. Let's move on to the next slide. All right. So after you gather all that information about your debts, it might help to think about why you incurred the debt. So people get into debt for lots of different reasons. Maybe you're purchasing an asset, like a car or a house, or maybe even education. Another reason is paying bills, right? So maybe you're paying your utility bills using a credit card, or maybe a debt can result from not paying bills. So sometimes you may get a debt from a medical visit, and that becomes medical debt. That happened to me, and we had to pay that off as well. So sometimes you don't have enough funds to cover an unexpected expense or an emergency. So for example, I remember we had a refrigerator go out. So that was an unexpected expense. So we had to take time to help fix that. So that's an unexpected expense. Or maybe you want to buy things that you want or need. So sometimes holidays come up and you want to buy presents, or school comes and you need to buy clothes for the kids. So there's lots of different ways that you can get into debt. Next slide. All right, so debt can affect your financial situation because you'll need to use your income that you receive in the future to make payments on your debt that you've incurred in the past. So this is something called obligating future income. So in other words, you'll have fewer choices about how to use your future income because you'll have to use that in order to repay some or all of your debts. So you generally pay interest and sometimes fee on your debt until you pay it in full. So that means you're paying more money than you have to pay for items in cash. So I know for me, I'm kind of a competitive person. So when I got all that information together and I saw that all the interest that I was paying, that really kind of spurred us to start on our path towards paying off all our debt, just not having any obligations and paying all that interest, whether it's on a mortgage or credit cards. So whatever it is that everyone's different, right? Everyone has different motivations. So it helps to know yourself and see, okay, what can I use to help me start this process and go along to where I want to be. And you may not reach your goals, or you may reach your goals later than you planned. So that's why it's great to have a plan, because if you have a plan, it's more likely that it's going to happen as long as you take those small steps to get to where you want to be. So I would encourage everyone, make a budget and put all that information together so you know where every dollar goes, and every dollar has a name. Let's move on to the next slide. All right, so remember, the key takeaway here is understanding your debt is the first step to managing it. So let's move on to the next slide. So next section we're going to talk about is how debt works. So consider how debt works so you can make informed decisions about it. So in this one, we're going to talk about common debt terminology and how different types of loans work. So let's move on to the next slide. So the key takeaway here is we're going to be talking about how debt works so you can make an informed decision. So this one, there's different lingo, if you will, that you'll want to understand. So a loan with collateral that the lender can take if the loan is not repaid. So that is principal. So that's the amount you borrow. And then there's a term. So that's how long you have to repay the principal and pay the interest. And then I mentioned revolving credit. So that's credit cards. So there's a credit limit that they give you, the most that you can borrow. So if you apply for a credit card, and if you're just starting out, they may give you like $1,000 credit limit, and then you're going to have payments on anything that you borrow. And there's a minimum payment, often 1 to 5% of the outstanding balance. So as it states there, the more you pay, the faster that you pay it off, and then you pay less interest. So that's money that you save. Let's go into the next slide. So prepayment, so early repayment of all or part of your loan. So that reduces the interest costs, and it may mean an earlier payoff date. So always ask if there's any fee for repayment, and make sure that if there's additional charges, they're not in interest. Always make sure that you want to know what's out there. I know for us, when we paid off all our debt and we only had our mortgage left, that was a big undertaking. So we knew it was going to take several years. So we knew that we calculated how much interest we would save if we did that. So we had a 30-year mortgage and we were able to pay it in half the time. So it definitely pays to be organized and pay it off as soon as possible. Next slide. So I mentioned the key takeaway here is consider how debt works, and then you can make informed decisions about it. So let's move on to the next slide. Okay, so this one, we're going to talk about reducing debt. So the key takeaway here is develop a plan to reduce your debt and get help if needed, such as from a trained credit counselor. So that's something that we do a lot, especially through our church. We help individuals that are looking to get out of debt, and there's no better place to get help than somebody who's done it before. So we definitely counsel young couples as well as anybody who's interested in getting a better handle on their debt. But there's many different nonprofits that are available to do that, as well as resources online. Let's go to the next slide. So there's two strategies for reducing debt. So there's the high cost debt first method, which is to pay off debt with the highest cost. And then there's the snowball method. So this one is paying off debt with the lowest balance. So we used a combination of both of these. Both of them work. I will say that the second one, the snowball method, that really gives you motivation and it kind of gives you more energy, because once you see one small debt paid off, you can use that payment that you had on that previous debt and roll it over into the next one. And it's a great feeling to use that method, because one by one you get to see all your debts eliminated, and there's a great sense of satisfaction in that. So I definitely encourage everyone to celebrate those milestone moments when you do that. So I mentioned where to get help. So there's nonprofits that offer credit counseling, and there's the USA.gov, and you can enter credit counseling for any tips on doing that. So let's move on to the next slide. All right, so the high cost debt method. So this one, the advantage is you save money. The disadvantage is the progress may feel a little slower. So of course you want to list your debt's highest cost to lowest, and then obviously pay the minimum amount on each debt. And then you make extra payments to the first debt on the list. And after you pay the first debt, make extra payment on the next, and then and continue. So that's the high cost debt method. Let's move on to the next slide. And then the snowball method, the advantage is you make progress faster, but you may pay more a little in terms of interest. So here you list your debts from lowest balance to the highest balance, and then you pay the amount on each, the minimum at least, and then any extra you have, make it to that smallest one until it's paid off, and then move that money to the next one, and then you continue until all of your debts are paid off. So let's move on to the next slide. So definitely choose help carefully, because there are individuals as well as organizations out there that don't have your best interest in mind. So always make sure that you know who you're dealing with. So some debt settlement companies, they offer to make a deal with your creditors. So always ask about any fees and the process. And there's also debt consolidation loans, and one loan can be used to pay off multiple debts. So again, ask about interest rates, fees, and other costs. Everyone is unique and every situation is unique. So you always want to explore all your options and possibilities and make an informed decision before you decide on which path to take. Let's go to the next slide. So here the key takeaway was develop a plan to reduce your debt and get help if needed, such as from a trained credit counselor. All right, let's move on. Okay, so the next section we're going to talk about is non-payment of debts and debts in collection. So I'm going to go ahead and pass it on to my colleague Linda. So again, thank you everyone, and wish you the best of luck on your journey.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Robert. Thank you so much for sharing with us your take and your understanding of debts. And we hope that that information has been helpful to you. My name is Linda Maldonado. I too work with CTBC Bank, but here is my, hopefully my teaching on debt, and specifically those times when you've been thinking about not being responsible about your debt. In this section, we're going to talk about non-payment of debts and debts in collections. Key takeaway here, please, whatever you do, no matter how great the debt, don't ignore a debt collector. Don't ignore the absolute urgency of taking care of that debt. Make sure that any debt you are asked to pay is valid and handle it as soon as possible. And whatever you do, ask for help if you need it. Next slide. So let's talk about the life cycle of a debt, whether it's on time, current, which we call current, or when it's not current. So let's talk about that. So the key takeaway on this, on a life cycle of a debt that is current, it means that you are paying your debts on time and as agreed. Your debts are considered to be current, and you will eventually pay all your debts off on a timely basis. What many of us don't know is when you do accrue debt or seek out a credit loan or a credit card for a car or loan or mortgage, you are entering into an agreement with your debtor. You're letting them know that, yes, I am going to go ahead and take this loan out on the agreement that I'm going to pay the debt, the minimum payment or more on time at the time that was agreed for the term and length of the loan. So as long as you keep those payments up, you will have no problems with your debtors. There is, of course, a different cycle, another life cycle of debt when your debt is not current. You then take on that debt, you miss payments, which are then considered delinquent. And depending on how long you do not pay your payments, you now are in default of that loan. And eventually the creditor, the debtor, is going to charge off that loan. And so now you're into collections. The debtor has now taken the responsibility of getting those payments off of their hands, and they've now engaged a debt collector who's assigned to now collect on the debt that you owe. Next. So what does not paying debts look like? What can happen if you don't pay your debts on time and as agreed? Yes, you guessed it. You're paying more, and you're paying more on late fees or more money in interest. So I urge you almost immediately, to the point where you even anticipate that you are going to be delinquent on a payment, contact your debt collector, contact your debtor. Losing those services or paying for costs to reestablish them is a huge part of it, because you're going to need to know that you're going to pay the price for that. So let's get on top of it and contact your debt collector in advance. They'll even see that as an opportunity of you being proactive in you managing your debt. And what you certainly don't want to do is risk the possibility of losing collateral. People have lost their cars, their homes, wages have been garnished. Those are assets, and those pieces of your asset portfolio will be taken if you do not manage and act upon your debt timely. Next. So what else can happen? So I don't know about you, but it's happened to me where when I neglect to pay on my debt, negative entries do appear on credit reports. Robert did mention to you earlier, you can get a free credit report annually, and it's free to you. And you can tell from an annual basis what credits, what debts you have that have been tagged as a negative entry. It will indicate how many days you've defaulted on a particular payment. So you do want to make sure that you get a copy of that as soon as possible once you are committed to managing your debt. Also, drop in credit scores. That FICO score is critical. There will be a significant drop in your FICO score when you miss payments. There are lawsuits that can potentially be involved, wage garnishments, account garnishments, treasury offsets. I can't tell you how many times I've heard stories of employers now being involved because debt had not been handled. HR is possibly calling you to ask and to tell you that, as in obedience and accordance with the law, they now need to garnish your wages as a result of non-payment of debt. And consider this: if you are expecting an IRS return, you never know if you owe a debt, They can garnish your returns on your IRS returns and annually. So you want to make sure that you are managing your debt accurately. Next slide. So we talked a lot about debt, but like all things, we need to make a plan. And this is your opportunity to take a very close, candid, honest look at your debt. So make a plan. Sit down with a pen and piece of paper and start writing it down clearly. Be sure to know, do you owe this debt? Sometimes the debt could be in default out of an error, but you will not know that unless you actually call your debtor to find out whether that debt is real or a mistake. So you owe it to yourself to write down and justify whether that debt is real or if it's something that could be done and handled by a simple removal. The next thing you want to know, is there a statute of limitations that has been expired? Perhaps there are times when there's a time frame that they've been looking at to making sure that you will settle your debt and you missed it. And maybe you will have to incur further fees because that statute of limitations had it extended. You want to make sure of that. And make sure that you are dealing with a legitimate debt collector. I promise you that there have been occasions where many, many people have gone and got scammed into paying off a debt with a debt collector that was not a legitimate collector. Please do the research. Check them out. Check to see with the Better Business Bureau. Perhaps they are scammers. You want to make sure that everyone who is collecting a debt is a legitimate collector. If you know those 3 items, pay off the debt as soon as possible. The next point, if payment in full is not possible, set up a payment plan. You know what is coming into your account. You know what's in your pocketbook. You know your checkbook better than anyone. You know whether or not you can pay that minimum payment on time or not. So set up a plan. Be honest and transparent with your collector. If you can only pay $20 a month, let the debtor know. They may negotiate with you a lower payment and perhaps extend the term of the repayment plan, but they won't be able to help you if you do not share that information with you. Negotiating a lower balance is also a great opportunity. My mom used to say, closed mouths never get fed. You won't know what options are available to you if you don't ask for them. Next slide. Debt collectors must follow rules, just like you as the debtor has to follow rules by informing your creditor, just like you have to inform them of any late payments or inform them of your debts. They have to follow the rules too. Anytime that you've received a call from a debt collector who is abusive, unfair, or deceptive in their practices, you can report them. So here's some other guidelines and some tips for you to follow. You can request that they not call you at work. You can request that they do not call you before a certain hour. I believe that in the state of California, it's before the hours of 8 and not after 6 or 7 in the evening. So you can report that. No threats of violence. No debt collector should ever approach you with any threats of violence. And they absolutely should not and cannot speak with you in an offensive or using profane language. Report those problems with the debt collector or their managers immediately. Next slide. So remember, the key takeaway in this section is don't ignore a debt collector. Make sure that any debt you are asked to pay for is valuable and is legitimate, and you pay that off as soon as possible. And definitely get help if you need it. Next slide. So let's talk about one of the most significant debts that we incur that are sometimes very unexpected and take us by surprise. and that is medical debt. We can't predict the kinds of medical situations that occur to families and loved ones. And I cannot tell you how often I've had to adjust my whole budget based on an unexpected medical debt. So the key takeaway here, if you receive a medical bill, make sure that it's a valid expense. Make sure that your benefits, medical benefits, do cover the most that they could possibly cover associated with that bill. And whatever out-of-pocket expenses you have, make sure they are valid and that you pay them. If you cannot afford to pay that out-of-pocket expense, try to set up a payment plan. Next slide. So what is medical debt? The medical debt is the result of not paying medical bills when they're due. And it includes dental visits. It includes eye visits. It includes anything that has to do with your physical body constitution. So I know that there's a copay when I go visit my doctor, when I visit my eye doctor, when I visit my dentist, or when I visit my physician. If I don't pay those co-payments on a timely basis, they become a debt. And those debts add up. We don't want that. We want to pay them on time. You don't start out with debt when you receive medical care. You're right. The balance is zero. However, you receive the medical care, you receive the bill for the medical care, and if the medical bill is not paid, it becomes medical debt. Next slide. So let's talk about why medical bills often turn into medical debt. First point that comes to mind, it is unplanned. Absolutely. How many times we've not planned to go to work and get into a car accident? That's not what we planned for. However, we may have planned for a pregnancy. And so we are anticipating that once you have that baby, there's a medical bill that you'll have to be planning for and planning to pay. Next, total costs are not known up front. Absolutely true. I can't tell you how many I remember a time that I broke my leg and my mom and dad took me to the emergency room, and there was no way of them knowing in advance that a cast on my leg would be $500 just to put the cast on. We don't have $500 just waiting in our checking account or our savings account to pay off for a cast, but that was part of the bill. And they knew they had to pay that because not only that, the other expenses quickly add up. Expenses for the medication that is offered to you, expenses for the doctor who cares for you, expenses for the bed that you sleep on or rest on during your time of care. So all of these expenses add up. And medical debt becomes confusing. Many individuals who are providing care are not necessarily sharing every item of their expenditure, so they're not sharing that with you. Sometimes there's a lack of understandable detail. You get a statement and they're using medical terminology when we ourselves are reading it. It's literally gibberish to us. And then, of course, we are completely unaware of what insurance does cover in the time of our medical situation. So insurance information is often unknown. So keeping your medical, your hospital, your care provider up to date on current medical benefits that you have or what insurers are in your plan definitely would be helpful to them when they comprise your statement and bring it to you. Next slide. So there is possible actions that you can take care of right now to ensure that you are handling your medical debt appropriately. Make sure it's a bill and that you owe it. Again, check all of the items in that statement. If it's accurate and you know that you owe it, you owe it. And write that down. If you do not owe it, dispute the bill. you do have a right to talk back to your hospital or to your healthcare provider to dispute a particular cost. Chances are they may agree with you and it can be removed, but you won't know unless you ask. If you do owe it, but you cannot pay the debt in full, try to negotiate a lower payment amount. Try to set up a payment plan. Try to settle the debt. Work with nonprofit credit counseling organizations. Or if the debt is just simply too great and you just simply cannot, as a last resort, consider bankruptcy, perhaps like I said, as a last resort. Again, plan, write it down, talk to your debt collectors, and let's make sure that we are managing our debt responsibly and timely. Next. So medical debt that's in collections and credit is now when the debts have been referred to collections. These unpaid medical debts do appear on credit reports once a year after the first missed payment. Unfortunately, medical debt is very unforgiving debt. The minute that you miss that payment, they will show up on your credit report. So we want to be sure that we get on top of that as timely as possible. Medical debt that is in collections is not included on credit reports after it's paid. So once you've settled it, it's done. You don't have to worry about it. But after and most importantly, reach out for help if needed. So your medical care provider, whether it's urgent care or your hospital or Kaiser, whatever your medical care provider is, they do have customer service representatives on staff to help patients deal with their debt. Again, this is important. This is a service to you, and this would be very helpful to you to managing and ensuring that you handle your debt in a timely basis. Next slide. So remember the key takeaway. If you receive a medical bill, make sure it's valid. And if you can't afford to pay it, try to set up a payment plan. Next slide. Okay. I'm certain you've heard the saying, it's probably more expensive to be poor than to be rich. The reason why is because there's a high cost to paying debt. In this particular section, we're going to talk about how the high cost of debt works and then identify ways that we can lower those cost options for your future. Next slide. So what is high cost debt? It's the result of a small dollar short-term loans with costly fees or high interest rates or both. And they are the risks and benefits of all financial products and services, including high cost debt. Have you ever heard of people trying to get loans out of from pawn shops or payday advances, or perhaps loans against their cars? Those are the agencies that offer small dollar amounts for short-term times, but they have very high fees and high interest rates attached to them. So let's talk some more about them. Next slide. Many times we've heard commercials on TV about car or vehicle title loans. These are loans for a small amount of money for a short bit of time. And they have listed their vehicle title as the collateral. Again, the term of the loan is usually 30 days, which means that if you don't pay off the entire loan that you've asked for within those 30 days, that vehicle title that you've put up as collateral now is theirs. You now lose your car. There's a potential for that. And again, there are high fees attached. So this type of loan can be very expensive. Next slide. So let's talk a little bit about what payday or payday advance loans look like. And if you look at the circle in the cycle, It's the innocent bystander. It's us, the borrower, who visits the payday lender or person, in person or online, to get a new loan. And then we are borrowing, and we are asking for this dollar amount to have, to pay off some unexpected debt that we didn't plan for. Correct? So now the borrower gives the lender a personal check dated perhaps 14, 15 to 30 days in advance, in the hopes that the money that we get 15, 30 days in advance can cover the loan that we need and request today. The lender gives the borrower the amount of the loan. And then when the loan is due, if the borrower doesn't have the money to cover the check or the withdrawal, the loan may be reborrowed with more fees. But you possibly can lose what you put up in collateral. That's going to be a real challenge for us. Then there's, of course, the pawn shop loans. Items that you pawn are the collateral. Your mom's bracelet that has been in the family for generations. You now use it as a collateral for a pawn shop loan. Loan amount is usually 25 to 50% of how much the pawn shop considers the item to be worth. So for them, it's 50%, it's probably up to 50% less than what it really is and what the value is and meaning of value to you. And you must repay the loan, renew it, or lose the item. Next slide. Remember, there's a high cost to how debt works. So identify lower cost options for the future. Personally, I've never used payday advances or vehicle title loan advances or any of the check advances situations to settle my debt, because I realize that not only am I responsible for the loan that I'm asking for, but I'm also paying a huge amount of interest, usually far greater than that is even issued by a credit card company. And I'm also paying the fee of the cost of borrowing that money from those establishments. Next slide. So let's take some action. And I'm a big planner. I love to write things down. So what is your plan of action? And ask yourself these questions. What will I do? What are you going to do? You're going to list those debts. You're going to list the creditors' names. You're going to list the balances that you owe. You're going to list the amount of those minimum payments. You want to make it very clear in front of you what your debt looks like. And then secondly, how will I handle it? How are you going to handle that debt? Does it mean that you're going to use the snowball effect, like Robert mentioned earlier? Pay off the smaller balance first, and then once that debt is paid, pay the next highest debt using the money that you would use on the first debt. And you just snowball those payments up until all of your debt is free. And just a tip, as you're paying off your debt, you want to try avoid using those credit cards or incurring any more debt as you are initiating a snowball payment plan on your debt. And then finally, will I share my plan with anyone? And if so, who? I am so grateful that I have persons in my life who hold me accountable for my debt. There have been times that I've passed it on to my sister, who is extremely money savvy and who doesn't have any real credit card debt. So she holds me accountable to make sure that I'm paying my debt on time. And if you don't have anyone that you can be accountable to, perhaps you can make a plan of perhaps taking the credit cards that you owe huge amounts on and locking them away. Perhaps locking them in a safety deposit box or giving them to a friend of yours who is going to hold you accountable to your debt removal plan. and they will hold those credit cards for you while you begin the process of paying off your debt. As always, you can always refer to www.fdic.gov/education to learn more on how to be more proactive about your debt. Good luck to you, and I hope that these tips have been helpful, and enjoy the rest of the presentation. Next slide.
A wealth of information. Thank you, Robert and Linda, for the tips and information on how to manage debt. Hi, everyone. My name is Nora Perez, and we are here to help you meet your savings goal through the Ally Saves campaign. Next. It's American Saves is a campaign managed by the nonprofit Consumer Federation of America. Our working group decided to join the American Saves campaign and launch on our own campaign, Ally Saves. Everyone here is encouraged to go to allysaves.org in order to take the step in holding yourself accountable for saving. Ally Saves encourages people to make a commitment to save money, reduce debt, and build wealth. Think of Ally Saves as your savings accountability partner, such as Robert and Linda had mentioned. Next, please. And why save? Why do we say it's so important to have a little savings to support you through a unexpected emergency, and a general emergency savings can be for large, small unplanned bills or payments that are not part of the routine monthly expenses and spending. For example, having to get a tire to replace it, you have to have that emergency fund. That is an unexpected unexpected expense. So what's the easiest way to save automatically? The easiest way and most effective way is to save automatically. Think about it. The savings automatically is the exact same way as the 401k or other retirement programs. So taking the same concept that you can set it and forget it, and adjust the money going directly into your savings would work for any savings goal you have. Including savings for emergency fund, home ownership, education, paying off debt, or even a vacation. Next, please. Like Robert and Linda were discussing, creating your spending and savings plan. You can also think about savings by reducing debt. You will save on interest and improve your credit score for future needs. Next, please. Good credit management is important. Save interest on late fees. It's so important to plan and build and to maintain a good credit history. Good credit saves money, and bad credit costs money, right? Think of credit as a tool to be used wisely. Employers, landlords, insurance companies may use credit history to determine whether you are a good risk. So that's why it's important to take control of your credit. Save with healthy credit score. A good credit score goes beyond the ability to get a loan at the best terms. It also saves you money on things like utilities, rent, even a cell phone plan. Reach financial security begins with starting an emergency fund. Whatever amount you are comfortable with, this covers small emergencies while you're getting out of debt. Next, please. So plan to reduce debt. Getting out of debt is the number 3 goal savers select when they pay to save. It makes sense, right? Because debt can keep you from building wealth. and then a large consumer that can keep you from saving and building wealth. However, good credit history will result in getting the lowest interest rate for loans and other services, which will put in a better position and increase your savings and increase your wealth as well. With planning, discipline, and patience, also anyone can reduce debt and start accumulating wealth. So I encourage you to let's start today and enroll in the LASafes.org and take a pledge, a promise, simply a promise to yourself that you will save money. Next, please. So take the LA Saves pledge. Why take this pledge? Take the American Saves pledge is a pledge to yourself. Promise to yourself to start saving in a journey. And American Saves is here to encourage you along the way. Take the first step towards creating a better financial future for yourself. Pledge taking process. The pledge is very simple. It's a one page. During this pledge, you will establish personal goals, make a plan, and complete the pledge. You will then get periodic reminders, resources, and tips to keep you on track and towards your savings goals. So it's a really neat tool. So take advantage of it. Next, please. Making a plan. An example. So making a plan and establishing personal goals is part of the process. The plan and pledge intended to help you meet your savings goal by offering you long-term accountability. And we all need that accountability, right? And support along the way, right? One plan example is nearly a quarter of the savers who take this LA Saves pledge, emergency savings as a first wealth building goal, and they have the right idea. Research show that low income families with at least $500 in emergency fund were better off financially than moderate income families with less than this amount. Yet most Americans don't have enough savings to cover unexpected emergencies. So we encourage you to take the pledge at lasaves.org. You know, it's if you save 50 cents a day, you will save $15 a month and $180 a year. So think about that. Or even if you save $5 a week by not spending on something, coffee or something like that, you will save $260 a year. Imagine that. You could simply save today by, just going to lasaves.org. Next, please. And then I'm going to be talking about Bank On. So do you need to open a bank account? Opening a bank account be one of the most important steps you take reaching your financial goals. Why? Because putting your money in the FDIC insured bank accounts can offer the financial safety, easy access to your funds, savings from check cashing fees, and overall financial peace of mind. So if you go into fdic.gov /getbanked, and I could put that in the link as well in the chat, the link. So next, please. You can open your own affordable, safe, and certified bank of credit unions. Nationally certified Bank On accounts have no overdraft fees, and most of them don't have a cost like $5 or less a month. And you can use them to manage your money and pay your bills at no cost. Go to dcba.lacounty.gov, and you'll see the list of checking accounts available to you from the banks participating in the Bank On initiative. So when you go into there, the first step is pick a bank or credit union from the list. And then second, open your own safe bank on certified account. And then third, use your account to direct deposit funds, pay bills, and manage your money. The resources I can also put on the link. So thank you for joining us, and I hope you register for lasafe.org to help you meet your goals. So thank you for attending. And any questions?
Okay, there we go. For a moment there, I was muted. Sorry, everyone. All right, then. Thank you again, Robert, Linda, Nora, for the presentation. We are a little bit close to the end, so I'm going to see what questions we do have. But I did notice some interesting comments by our viewers, and one of them is, by the way, this is an awesome name, Gabby Goober. She did mention that it looks like she read the book titled Surviving Debt by the National Consumer Law Center, and she recommended it, and it seems like it's really good. I double checked, and it looks like we also have, by the way, the book in our collection through LAPL. So it's available as an ebook. I did put the link to the ebook. So if you're interested in checking it out for free as part of your library card, please do so and put yourself on the queue list, on the whole list. Another book that was suggested by another viewer is Debt. The First 5,000 Years is good too. I haven't looked that up yet, but I'm pretty sure we might carry it in our collection. All right then. So let's see what questions we do have that we can sort of respond to within a few minutes. And if we could please bring back Nora and Linda just to see which questions they can answer. All right. So we have here, let's see. Okay, here we go. Is it really helpful to let the creditor or landlord know that my payment is going to be late? So who would like to take that? Linda?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, it is very important. Even when you anticipate that you are going to miss a payment, or even if you're in that place where you are, absolutely. You're letting your creditor and your landlord know that you are being actively participating in the responsibility of the debt. There's nothing more gracious and courteous to a landlord or to a creditor to let them know that you are being responsible about your debt, and that you may be negligent, and that you have a plan in place that will cover the debt. They will be so impressed with that they may even possibly waive the late fee or waive the extra interest. There is such a wonderful thing, a price that we can receive in being courteous and informing our debtors of our situation.
Yes, and especially now that, well, of course, that we've all gone through COVID and the pandemic, please make sure you do that and keep everything in track. So let's see, what else do we have? Oh, and it looks like I think this is more for Nora. I don't currently have a bank account. Why should I consider getting one now?
So if you don't have a bank account, you could go into Bank On and get, you don't have to pay any fees, if you don't want to be handling money, cash around, especially in these times, and just having managing your money, and it'll be helpful if you put your money in a bank and have the ability to see how much you're spending monthly. And that will give you like a tally of how much you're spending monthly. So it's a good idea to open an account, and especially on Bank On, you don't have to pay, these outrageous fees a month. And it's a good idea to open an account.
especially for those of you who are realizing as we head towards the end of the year, income tax refunds are coming along. And if you want a direct deposit to your account without any fuss, keep that in mind. Also, for any possibilities of the gas tax refund, who knows? But again, if you get one, again, having a bank account is extremely useful. All right. Ooh, so we are close to the end, and I just have a few more notes for the library. Again, thank you, Robert, Linda, Nora, and everyone here who has been with us, you, the viewers, for being here today. Just a reminder that this presentation will be available on the library's YouTube channel to view. Our financial planning programs will continue with other great programs and ending with your savings on Tuesday, October 25th from 12 to 1 p.m. A list of the programs and subject-related books are, related books are available in the Financial Planning Month website. So there you go. And again, thank you everyone for joining us today, and have a great afternoon.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.